All right, thank you guys for coming back. This is 26 Sports again with your host Mike Rether, and I'm here with the one and only Michelle Joy Phelps, the one that gave me my start here, Miss MGP or MJP. I'm sorry. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good, good. Just a little tired, but doing what I got to do. So, we'll get right into it. So, how have you been handling this quarantine? I see you got your green thumb going, planting some stuff out there, and enjoying time with your family. So, how's it going for you so far?
Yeah, at the start of this, I took on a new hobby. I started gardening, which is never anything I've ever been good at. I think I tried to grow jalapenos like years ago, and it died within like a couple of weeks. So I never thought that I could actually keep a plant alive. And to my surprise, I couldn't even count how many vegetables are growing in the back right now.
Yeah, I know. I seen the post you were having. I was like, man, it was like it looked pretty good. So, yeah, hey, like I tell people, this quarantine has helped a little bit in finding new hobbies for people and doing new things. So, I mean, it hasn't been
Hmm.
100% bad, but for the things that we like doing, I know it kind of has affected us. So, I mean, with you, you're all over the world. You're always busy. So, besides being away from the family most of the time when you're on the road, how has this helped as well with that?
I think it's been so necessary for my soul because even I think it was December, well, the end of last year, I started to really kind of feel like depleted, and I wasn't spending enough time with my family and with my friends, and it was just work, 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 work. Because last year was one of the busiest years of my career to date. So, the silver lining in the pandemic for me has been spending more time with my family. And it's actually going to be really difficult to go back to England, which I'm more than likely going back next month. And leaving is going to be really challenging because I haven't had this much quality time with my family and friends in nearly 10 years.
That's yeah, and for as long as I've seen everything, you've been busy, so I know you're really enjoying it. I mean, I've seen you post about how it's really helped. Like I tell people, for me, it sucked because at the beginning of this year, I was supposed to go to Puerto Rico in January for
Mm-hmm.
an MMA event. They had the earthquake, so that kind of caused it to go down. And then I started talking to people, and I was gonna go to a couple events in LA for Virgil Ortiz's fight.
Mm-hmm.
Pandemic hits 2 weeks right before, and that shuts down. But yeah, I mean, I've spent a lot more time, with my daughter, which helps out a lot, and of course, my fiance being home with her a lot. But it's still like, I mean, it's cool being home, but it's that, as you said, it's that work that
Yeah.
it's really fun when you actually get the hang of it. And like I've always told you, I'm indebted to you for it because it you got me started in it. So many people that I know now, like when I talk to them, they're like, man, I don't know what to do with myself. I'm just home all day. Like I'm talking to managers, promoters, fighters. They're like, I'm running, but that's it. I'm hitting the punching bag in the backyard, but they want to go to the gym and all that. So yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, as they said too, it kind of helped them a lot as well for the fighters because some fighters were constantly in the gym working out fighting, and now they get to kind of rest a little bit. But for us, I know, like I said, we like to be at the events, going to the fights. I mean, you're in England, as you said, so hey, and you said you're going back next month.
More than likely, I haven't booked the ticket yet, but it is looking very likely that I'll go back in August. Um, Although media are still not permitted to attend events, I think that I could still kind of be up in the mix to some degree if I can like just put back out there and possibly do some interviews face to face.
Yeah. Well, you'd still be
And
able to go to the gyms, right?
huh?
You'd still be able to go to the gyms and things, right?
You're right. Yeah, with fighters, you can still go visit them in the gym, and you can visit them at their homes or anywhere for interviews. As long as you're 2 meters apart, they're still allowing
Yeah.
face-to-face interviews. So that's not really something that I find that most people want to do here in California. I've tried, and when I get it, everybody feel like their fear is heightened. They don't know, like, they don't want to put themselves at risk, and I understand that. So again, I'm just going to see at some point in August about returning. And I mean, and I have a place out there. I haven't been there in 4 months, so
Oh,
nearly
wow.
3 months. So it'd be nice to kind of go back to my apartment and wash the dusty blankets.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember last time when were in England for so long, when you came back, you said your car was all dusty and you had to wash that off. So now it'd be the other way.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? I'll just give it a go, give it a month or so, and see how it goes. And if there's nothing happening whatsoever, then I'll just come back to California and spend the duration of the time with my family.
Yeah. And now you have your place in England and you're here right now. Aside from the pandemic, what are the two biggest differences and biggest similarities that you see when you're in England and when you're back here in the States?
Uh, in what aspect?
Like just the style of living, the way of life.
Oh, they're very different, but not too different than say if you go to like Greece or Italy. It's not that different from America. Maybe just the driving on the opposite side of the road. That's something I'm never going to get used to. And I've driven before, but in the first week of driving, I got it's like a speeding camera,
Oh, wow.
and I didn't know that there was like I don't know the signs. The signs are very different from America, so I didn't know that this is an area that you have to like go like 15 miles an hour, and I got a photograph taken, and so that was my first experience of driving up there. So I choose not to drive. I choose to take an Uber or drive a food.
Oh, okay, okay. So
The
that's good.
food is very different too. I like really spicy food, and you don't really find very much spicy food unless you eat curry. And I can't eat curry every single day. I will
Yeah.
literally gain 50 pounds in a month because I love curry, and I can't allow myself to get in the habit of eating it all the time.
Yeah, see me, I never eaten curry. I don't know, I
Well,
can't. I just have never brought myself to it, but I remember the last time I had asked you that about the food over there, and you're like, I've lost like 20 pounds or something in this last few weeks because you said there's nothing different for you to eat as it is here.
it's just more bland, and that's not everywhere. It's just that I like chilies in everything, and the
Hmm.
chilies out there are not spicy. Like, if anyone knows of a place that sells really, really spicy chilies in England, I really need someone to call at me and let me know where this place is, because I go to all these stores, and even though the packages say like super spicy, the spiciest, the hottest, it's nothing.
Yeah, it's nothing like the American ones. Yeah, I like chili too, so I probably wouldn't be very frustrated out there. But um,
Yeah.
now, arena wise, because you've been to the arenas in England, their arenas compared to the American arenas for the fans, because when they have fights, that's one of my goals is I want to be able to go one day to a fight out there just because when I see the arena and the stadiums and how they get, it looks incredible. So that's one of my goals. So what is the difference in a fight there to here in America, like the response of the fans?
I mean, it's so different. I mean, I'm not. The thing is, I don't want to dismiss one fan base over the other. But in England, they chant a lot, they sing a lot, and I think that comes from the football out
Hmm.
there.
Yeah.
So they take like that chanting spirit from those games and bring it to the fight. So it's a very different experience. I think it's a European thing, really, because I don't see that ever really happening in America. So it's different and it's fun and they're loud and obnoxious, and I think that just adds so much to watching a fight. You get to be more hyped rather than if it's not your favorite fighter or the main event, everyone's kind of like quiet. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, and that's, I mean, the entrances, everything, they seem over the top, but not in a disrespectful way. Like they seem, I mean, the fireworks, all the stuff that goes out there looks crazy. And in
Mm-hmm.
here, I mean, yeah, they're good. I mean, if anyone, I guess Wilder probably has some of the more extravagant type of entrances.
Yeah.
Yeah, Fury when he fights here. So yeah, but over there, I mean, it seems like everybody that fights there has fireworks going off as soon as they walk out to the ring. So,
Well, not everybody. It's
well, the
mostly
main
like,
main,
I mean, yeah,
yeah, but
definitely the heavy, like
yeah, but I
AJ.
mean, yeah, because I'm saying you won't see Pacquiao or Mayweather or anybody doing that out here, but out there, it's whoever the main event is. There it goes. Here comes everything. Like Joshua's, yeah, his entrances are incredible, and
Yeah.
and that's why I like the Super Series because their entrances as well. When they had the people walk into that spot and then the lights came
Yeah.
down, those were really good. So I like those as well.
Yeah. Those were always good.
And you worked those events. How was that like different from going to what you normally did to covering? I mean, you covered a whole tournament there. So how was that?
Hmm. It was something that I will always remember for the rest of my life. I mean, being able to watch history be made with music, to be there throughout the whole experience. We all really became like family, to be honest with you. I mean, all of our, between the teams and production and the promoters, we all just had this bond after season one. And I'm forever grateful for it. It was my first television job. I started off as their social media host, and within my first event, I was moved up to TV. So I'll always hold a very special place in my heart for the World Boxing Super Series.
Yeah, and for everybody that doesn't know, can you explain how you actually started in boxing media? Because I remember the video, even though it's no longer out there. But um,
Yeah, I made a video, or started making videos online, just sort of talking about the fight that happened the night before, and it's just slowly grew. It had a couple thousand views each time, and people were asking, "You should do more of this. We will be doing more of this." And it really was just something I did occasionally. I had no idea that my whole life or my whole future was about to sort of evolve because I was in LA at the time trying to be an entertainment host, doing auditions, trying to get into the entertainment world, and I had no idea what was waiting for me. And I, I mean, through hard work, obviously, you know how
yes,
much work goes into it. It's just something that kind of presented itself to me, and I seized the opportunity, and I started interning for a couple of different sites. I've always encouraged people to intern, learn. That's a free on the job learning
yeah,
experience. You know what I mean? And that's really how you build your contacts. That's how you um, get people to know who you are. Because otherwise, if you don't put yourself out there, you're always just going to be like a screen name or an empty email that's just trying to get in contact with everyone. So the one thing I've always encouraged people to do if they're wanting to go into the sport of boxing is to intern.
yeah.
So that's what I did. I interned for several outlets for free. I worked for free for easily the first year. And I created Between the Gloves. I sort of just wanted to do my own thing. I told everybody from the get-go that was what my intention was, and sure enough, here I am.
Yeah,
Almost 9 years later.
yeah, and it really exploded from where you started to where you're at now. And what the reason I say that I remember the very first, I believe it was the very first video, was that Pacquiao Bradley one that you did.
Yeah.
And yeah, that one was hilarious because I mean I could tell that there was a couple of adult beverages in you. So
Yeah. Well, I
so
always say that. Like I was out at a bar one night, and I decided to go home using a little blogging flip cam. Those things are so old. I didn't even have a tripod. What I did is I taped the bloggy flip cam a mirror, and I used that to record.
Yeah, and I remember I was just like, okay, this lady's drunk, but she's making a lot of sense. And yeah, and it was funny to me because I started following Behind the Gloves. I think probably about 2013 or so, maybe somewhere around there. And I was like, oh, this is really good. And then when the opportunity came up, you know, I took the shot and I wrote a story, and you guys took it. And then I seen the picture of you, and I was like, hey, that's the lady from the Pacquiao video. And I was like, oh my god, I was like that's cool. So yeah, and it's funny because I know at first when I started and I would, you know, talk to people and they'd be like, oh, well, who are you with? It was like, oh, I'm Behind the Gloves. Oh, okay, yeah, definitely, yeah, here you go, yeah, well, Michelle, yeah, here you go, here's the number, here, call them at this time, and I was like, oh, okay, and I mean, I seen that how people respected you and respected the hustle, but I didn't fully get it until the first fight I went to, and it was out here in Lemoore. It was a little casino, but they sat me up in the very front of the media area because I told them, I was like, oh yeah, it was Behind the Gloves, Michelle. Oh, here's your seat right here. And they actually brought my fiance, who was pregnant at the time. They let her sit up there with me as well because of who I was writing for. So they're all, oh yeah, go ahead, yeah, Michelle, yeah, sit right here. I was like, oh okay, tell her we said hi, and that was Top Rank. So I was like, oh okay, no problem.
Yeah, I
So
love
yeah.
Top Rank.
Yeah, so that was like, oh, okay. And then after that, everybody would tell me, oh, yeah, we know her. How is she? I was like, she's cool. I was like, they're like, oh, yeah, well, tell her I said hi. And I was like, oh, okay. But,
Well, we appreciate you obviously contributing, which is something you've done with us for quite a while. So,
yeah,
yeah, you know, nothing but the best. I know that we don't really do any featured articles anymore.
yeah,
We kind of stepped away from all of that just because we really try to focus more so on videos. But we appreciate everything you've done.
yeah. And I appreciate everything you guys did for me because, like I say, if it wasn't for that, had I never gotten that shot, I don't know what I'd be doing. But because of that, I mean, I've told people, I was like, I've been invited to fighters' homes. I've ate with them. I've drank with them. Um, I've hung out with their families, and it's incredible. Like I've never thought I would get that shot. People I would see on TV that I was like, oh, that'd be cool to meet them when they're calling me like, hey, like I tell everybody the story. I had surgeries on both of my hands, and it was the day before a fight card. That morning, these two fighters that are on that card actually called to see how I was doing, and I was like, what? They're like, oh, you okay? I'm like, are you okay? You're about to fight. Oh yeah, we're good. I'm like, okay. Like I was like, yeah, I'm fine. I'll be okay in a few weeks. Oh, okay. Well, just checking on you, man. Hope you get to watch us. And I was like, yeah. And it was just like I would have never thought that. Like you know, and it's some of the guys that you meet, or even the girls as well, that you wouldn't know how they actually are outside of the ring. They seem like one type of person, and then you actually develop a type of relationship with them, and you're like, wow, they're not what you would expect. So
Yeah.
it's pretty cool, and like I always tell you all the time, I'm always indebted to you because I would have never had that shot if it wasn't for you. So I always
You know
thank
what?
you for that.
Everyone gives someone a shot. Someone gave me a shot. So I've given so many people who are currently in the industry their first jobs. So it feels good. I mean, it's just an evolving door. Everyone sort of wants to help each other. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's the thing that I see it as too is like in football they always say the coaching tree where they'll have one picture of one guy and they'll say these are all people that came from this coach. Well, that's really
Yeah.
what you're gonna have. They're gonna have the picture of you, and they're gonna say, oh, this one came from her. Oh, he came from her. She came from her. So
That
that's
would
gonna
be
be pretty
cool
cool.
in
Yeah,
20 years' time to be able to say, like, have a chart and see, you know, who has started through Behind the Gloves and really grown and flourished in their careers. I think that would be actually really cool to see.
yeah, and that's really what you have now. I mean, so many people that I have seen that you had, people that I
Yeah.
talked to that I would be at events with as well, and it's like, wow, you know, everyone's got their own niche in the sport now. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty cool. Um, so besides you know boxing and everything, you've done other things as well. I mean, like I said, I've known you for years now. So you did modeling, you were in Maxim and all that. How did it really transition? I know you were in LA. How did that transition go? Where I mean, seemingly it seems like it happened kind of quick. You know, you went from being in magazines and everything to being all over the world with fighters. So how did that transition really happen?
It didn't come quick. It was the longest journey ever. I think I had been living in LA. Let's see, I moved to LA when I was 21. started doing boxing when I was 26 or 27. I can't remember. I think I was 27. Yeah. Ooh. And basically, I had been a bartender. I was a licensed massage therapist. Working, I had so many clients. I had a lot of clients because I did sports massage. So it was really strong at one point. It was crazy because I think now I go to the gym now. I'm like, I don't know how I did this, but I really was strong to be working on the type of people I was working on. And anyways, it was a very long journey for me. Don't think for a second it wasn't. It was a lot of sacrificing. And the reason why I count it as 21 is because that's really what helped evolve me into being confident enough to do interviews in front of a camera. And even then, I look back on my early interviews, and I had so much to learn. Which is why, again, like I said, it's so important to intern because you kind of learn to work through your kinks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in my case, all of those auditions I went on, the small gigs that I got, all of that sort of prepared me for this. You know what I mean? So it was a long time coming for me. And just because I started behind the gloves when I was traveling didn't mean that I was like successful. I still had a lot of growth to be had with the business. Just because I'm there doesn't making a whole lot of money. So a lot of what I was making, actually everything I was making, was basically putting right back into the company, trying to travel and constantly keep the circulation of videos going, as well as in the process hiring people or seeking out videographer help. I couldn't do it on my own. So it's been a hell of a journey. Let's put it that way. And I turned 36 this month, and I think back on everything, like the last 15 years of my life. And although most of it's like a blur, you just sort of, after a while, you just condense all of the memories together. And every now and then things will pop up and be like, oh yeah, I remember that happening. I wish I had journaled more along the way. I really do. Because I have to remember, because there was so much work that went into it, so much sleepless nights, working, bartending. I was working well into 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and then you get up and then you go do everything else. You just have to pay your bills throughout the process of you trying to keep chasing your dreams. So, like, that's why I say a lot of it was a big failure, because there was a lot of like mental breakdowns along the way. And a lot of times where I thought I was going to give up.
Yeah, and you never did. So I mean, that shows how strong you really are. Because I could say to an extent I feel that, because there was once one of the cards that I covered was in Carson for you guys, and I had work the next morning, and I drove home from LA at midnight, got back home at about 3 o'clock in the morning, finished the story, and I went to work at 5 in the morning. I was dead tired, and everybody was like, well, why did you do that? I was like, well, because I wanted to cover the fight. And I made a lot of contacts. I met a lot of people out there, and it's like, that's something that you got to do sometimes. You got to go for that sacrifice. You got to do that. I mean, it's so I mean, I know I haven't done it to the 15 years, and I mean, sleepless nights like that, like yours consistently, but I mean, you grind it and you've got to a spot where yours is a global brand, honestly. I mean, people all around the world know it. England, people that I know from England that follow me on Twitter are because they know I wrote for you. So it's like when they're like, oh, what'd you think of the fight? I'm like, huh? And they're like, yeah, you wrote. I'm like, oh, yeah, yeah. They're like, yeah, I used to read your stuff on Behind the Gloves. I was like, oh, thank you. Like, cool. So, yeah, and with that as well, what's one of the biggest or surprising moments that you've ever been at during a fight that you remember?
What do you mean?
Like, not upsets, but like a moment that just stunned you, pretty much.
I always go back to the moment where I attended what was it? Carl Froch versus George Groves too.
The second, yes.
And I had never encountered, being in a stadium like that with 70,000 people, 80,000 people. Sorry, it's 80,000.
Yeah, he won't play that game with you. He will remind you of 80,000.
Correct me real quick. 80,000 people in attendance, and I've never experienced anything like that. So I think that was not just that, but just being in a different country now, being able to say like, "Wow, I'm in England now covering boxing." That was such a big deal for me. And so I would say that was probably the aha moment for me, where I could actually kind of like look back on that and think of how special that moment was for me. It was like a pivotal moment for me in my career.
Yeah, and
because I did it at that point. It was like I was officially trying to branch out into a whole new market.
Yeah, and I mean, pretty much that was that moment where, in a way, you felt like, you know what, you arrived, right? Like you were there because you were in England, right? Yeah. So yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That would,
London.
yeah. And I think for me, last year was the moment that it finally hit me that I was actually doing something. Like I said, that first fight I covered for you was in Lemoore, and the main event was Andy Reese. It was the little casino, the side of the road practically. It was outside, and he was the main event. And I remember when the fight got announced for him and AJ, I'm sitting there and I was like, wow. And everybody's like, what? I was like, the first fight I ever covered in person was Andy Reese. And they're all, what? Well, yeah, I was like, it just hit me. Like, I met him that night. I talked to him for like an hour after the fight. I didn't record anything. It was just a normal conversation. I was like, but I'm about to watch him fight for the heavyweight championship of the world. And then when he won it, it hit me more. I was like, wow, like I really hung out with this guy. I talked to this guy. It was like the first fight I ever seen in person covering a fight was that. So that's when it hit me, and I was like, and I wasn't even there, but I was like, wow, I could call him right now if I wanted to and congratulate him, type of thing. That's when it hit me too. I was like, wow. And
I know
the fight that I always remember was the one in Carson, was Valdez and Quigg, because it was raining, it was cold. I started off downstairs and I ended up in a booth because of how much it was raining, because they were like, do you want to just go? Oh, and see, that was the other thing. Michael, behind the gloves, right? I have a booth for you up there so you could stay away from the rain. You just sit in there and that's your spot. Oh, okay, cool. Thank you. So it was, and as soon as they just knew who I was, oh yeah, go up there. And I was like, all right. And people were staring at me like, how'd you get in there? Oh, I'm a writer. Oh, okay. And they're sitting there with their umbrellas or their ponchos, and I'm all sitting there in a nice warm room. But yeah, that fight too was good for me because it was like, it was a war. I mean, Valdez had his jaw broken. Everything was, and it was just so cool because at that, I think we had made that switch like last minute for me to go to the fight. So yeah, so it was real cool, that one. And yeah, like I said, the Andy Reese moment was the one where it hit me like, man, I'm doing something. So
yeah.
Now, being at AJ's Fights, because you've been, I believe, in almost all of them, right?
Well, not all of them. A good majority of them, yes.
You were at the Klitschko one, right?
Yes.
Yeah. What was that atmosphere like? Because, I mean, obviously on TV, it looked crazy, but I know it had to be even wilder in person.
Yeah, I mean, it was a big moment. It was history making. It was, I don't know, it was, I don't know how to explain it other than it was just a moment that will stand out. I mean, it was what, 90,000?
Yeah.
90,000 people in attendance. There's even more people in there.
Yeah.
And it was everything to be able to sit back and watch fights like that happen. Again, one of these days, it's probably going to be the day I move into my home and I have like an actual space to pull everything out. But like all the memorabilia and the things that you just sort of gather over the years, to be able to look back at those programs, you know what I mean? And those photographs and say, wow, I was here for that. Like, I attended that. That's really cool. I mean, another one of those moments is going to be is Wilder Fury 2. That was another moment where it was like, whoa, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Another history-making moment. So there's been a lot of those, and I'm really grateful. I haven't had the chance to sort of go through all of my boxes yet, but I think that would be really fun to walk down memory lane and look back, because you do forget a lot. Like I said, like there's fights every weekend, and you're constantly moving. They can't really take the time to really take in the moment, you know. Yeah. So it'll be cool to do one of these days.
Yeah, and that's why with me, when I started out with you, I used to record all the interviews that I did over the phone. And there's times where I sit there and I'll hit play and I'm like, man, this was right before this fight. This is what he said before this fight. And it's yeah, like you said, it's a chance to take it in, because people be like, oh, so when you talk to him, like, you know what, I don't remember. I'm like, it was 2-3 years ago or something. And I'm like, you know what, let me go find it. And I go through my old phone and I hit play and I'm like, oh, that's right. Yeah, okay. And
you know what? When people ask me, like, what's been the funnest interview you've ever done, or most controversial, or I actually have to stop and really think, because there's been so many that there's not one in particular that stands out to me. There's not one specific interview that I can say that was the interview. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wish it was, but there's just so many. Like, there's so many different examples I can give with various fighters that do really great interviews, or really funny interviews, or controversial interviews, whatever you may want to, call it. But yeah, that's always a tricky question to answer.
Yeah. When they ask me that too, I feel the same way. I'm like, I like sit there, like, I know I could narrow down like the interviews where it's gone from, oh, how's the fight, to turning to a life interview. Like, I've had 3 or 4 of those, and those ones stick out because it's, like I said earlier, it's where you get to see that other side of a fighter, and those ones always stay with me, because I'm always like, man, that went quickly from talking about boxing to life. But that's why I like talking to the fighters, because I tell them, if you guys want to go off, talk about something else, go ahead, because I don't want to make it seem like I interrogate them. I want them to know that I'm there to just talk. Like, if you want.
Well, you know what? That's sort of like my style. Like, I don't like to stick by the book.
Yes.
There's more than enough people who are already doing that. So I like to sort of dive into the psyche of not the fighter, but the person.
Yeah.
And really kind of better understand where their passion came from, what they pulled from, and why they pulled from that. Yeah. There's so much in that I think the fans can appreciate when they get an in-depth interview with someone who's really opening up, who really kind of trusts you and feels that it's safe enough to go there. You're not going to take something they say out of context, or you're not trying to just take a headline. You're not just looking for a headline, but you're really listening. Like, you just really want to know, why they took the path they took, and what they had to go through to become the fighter and the person that they are today. So those are always the best ones.
Yeah, and you know what? I would say that I probably got so much of that from you, because I remember seeing your interviews, and it was never like, oh, so how tough was the fight? Or it was so many different types of questions that, I mean, yeah, it had boxing related, but it was so much different. So, and then plus me too, growing up, my mom used to always have me watching TV with her, Good Morning America and all that, and I would hate when they would ask those, oh, you were just in an accident, how does it feel? Oh, your friend just died, how are you feeling right now? Like, I hated those type of questions. Like, it bugged me. So I never wanted to be a person that would ask questions like that. It would be like, oh, so how's your family doing while you're training? And they would sit there like, I really miss them when I'm training. And it was stuff like that. I like to ask questions like that. I don't want them to, like I said, I don't want them to feel like I'm interrogating them or asking the same old.
And it's fine for people who do it that way. I mean, there's no wrong way in entering these interviews, as long as you're getting genuinely honest questions in return. And so long as your intent is to, do right by the interview. You're not trying to find some malicious, or you're not trying to be malicious in trying to get them to say something. That way you can sell the headline. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and that's what I respect so much, because there's such a variety of characters, who are journalists in this game, and we all offer something unique. I always say to people, find your niche. Don't conform to what you think networks want. Don't conform to what you think thinkers want, or what you assume people want to hear. Be who you are, because I think ultimately that's what people are more drawn to the most. And the same can be said with fighters. I think that's why the fighters who are the most open, honest, and genuine are the ones who have these loyal followers, because they feel like they can relate to them. And I think that's the most important thing. So as long as you stick to your guns, be who you are, never waver on that, I think that you'll be fine, just like everyone else will be. It's just the ones that are trying to be the 2.0 of someone else will always find that they're sort of, limited, I guess, because they're trying to be like another person already doing it.
Yeah, and that's why, like as you said, as long as it's with real intent, not just to grab a headline. Because there's been fighters where I interview them and they'll be like, hey, you know what? You actually wrote down exactly what I said. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to change your words, or I'm not going to try to make it sound like you said something different or you meant it this way. And they would say thank you, because there's so many guys that I've spoken to that'll switch it up, post it this way or that way. I'm like, oh, I never want to be the one to do that. So, and again, then those are the fighters that don't want to talk to you again later on if you do pull something like that. So now, as you said, you've been, Greece, Italy. Out of all the countries that you've been in fights in, I mean, you were in U.S. and England, as you said. What's the one country that you haven't gone to a fight yet that you would love to see one in?
I mean, I'm only going to say Dubai, because I've never been to Dubai yet, and they have events sometimes. But I think I've covered boxing in almost every single country that has boxing events, now including Saudi Arabia.
That's right.
Been to China, Germany, Russia, Latvia. Where else have I been? Monaco. I know I'm missing quite a few.
Well,
When I had to go
Super Series.
The TSA pre-check forms,
oh yeah,
they were asking where all your countries were. If I remember correctly, I've been to 22 countries or something like that. So I know damn well I'm missing countries on that. But
Mexico,
I would just say Dubai, for the reason that I haven't been there, and we have held events there.
Okay, so Mexico and Canada, you've covered it as well, right?
Canada, no, I have not covered any. But there's not very many that happen in Canada, to be honest.
And not anymore, especially not since Pascal's moved over here.
And I've been to Mexico just for the WBC event, which was the first time I've ever been to Mexico. I've never ever been to Mexico prior to that. So, not Mexico. It's not very frequent though that they have events there, and the same with Canada. But I think that they're going to definitely start to push more for the Middle East. Yeah, that's just basing that off of what or how I see promoters are talking about more so in the Middle East.
Yeah, I mean the Pacquiao and Mikey Garcia fight, they keep talking about that over there. So yeah, I mean that would make a lot of sense.
I haven't been to Australia either. I haven't covered one in Australia either.
Oh yeah, and it's crazy. The Australia one, I almost was going to go to the Pacquiao and Horn one, because I had talked to Lee Samuels from Top Rank about that fight, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool, And he goes, if you want to go, let me know. He goes, and I'll send your information to the promotions over there. And it was last minute. I was still in therapy for my hand, so I couldn't go. But that one, I've always thought of, man, I would have loved to go to that event. But then I thought, I don't know, because when they read those cards, I probably would have said something stupid. And so, yeah, but that would have been pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, 22 countries, that's crazy. I've only done the ones here. I haven't been out of state to cover a fight yet, so I'm ready for that. But that's
We'll
gonna
get
be,
there.
yeah, and that's still gonna be a while now because we got all of this
Yeah,
going on
yeah.
right now. But yeah, I mean, when I went to LA, that was an experience for me just to cover a fight there as opposed to just going because you just see people, I mean, fighters walking back and forth that are not fighting, but they're just there. And it's like, oh, like I ran into Crawford walking around, his trainer, and I was just like, what the? Like, this is what you guys do? They're like, oh my God. I never knew to what extent that fighters followed their people from their own camp. Like, they go,
Yeah.
and that's when I realized how good Crawford is with his team as well. So that was pretty cool, like, just seeing him out there. And I was like, now I see him every time Bomac's somewhere, there he is. So it's pretty cool. Now, there's a lot of other things you do. I mean, it's not just boxing and everything. So I actually want you to go and explain some other stuff that you've been doing over the last, few weeks and months.
Um. Well, there's not really been much aside from just trying to stay mentally productive with, working out and gardening and stuff of that nature. But just really trying to pass time without going crazy. So I
Yeah.
haven't really been doing much in the last few weeks.
Well, I meant the social awareness that you're bringing to some things that,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a petition that I have going around right now. Some friends and I were stumbling across some really disturbing stuff on social media, and we found Instagram to be quite challenging in trying to remove this content. So I asked some people to help us report the accounts, which they've found were being rejected instantly, saying we're not removing. So I find that there's not an option to report pedophilia on any social media platform. And so the petition going around is to obviously we have to get 100,000 signatures. It's a long ways to go. Didn't think it was going to be this difficult to get people to sign. I mean, it takes literally less than a minute, and I
Yeah.
cannot for the life of me understand why people do not sign it. More people don't sign it,
Yeah.
especially when it's there to protect children. But basically, what we're trying to get happen is an option to be made on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, and Snapchat for us to be able to report something very inappropriate. And I'm not talking about happening to women, I'm talking about children.
Yeah.
Very inappropriate stuff being placed about children and having pedophiles commenting under these accounts. That way, when we make those reports, it gets looked into. And once it's been looked into, if found to be, uh, harmful towards children, that they would turn over the IP address to the police or the FBI. That way, we could try to stop how open pedophiles are on social media.
Yeah.
So it's something that I'm really passionate about. I've said it many times. I myself am a sexual abuse survivor, so it's something that hold near and dear to my heart. And trying to do whatever I can do to see some sort of positive change made in helping children. I will do it.
Yeah, and as I told you, I mean, I signed up for it as soon as I seen it, and I never really noticed how much was out there until you posted about it. Then I was clicking on them,
It's
and it
very
was
open.
yeah, it was crazy. I was just sitting there like, are you serious? And to me, where it hit me was I'm looking at these things, and
Mm-hmm.
YouTube actually is a lot more protective. It says, "Can kids watch this?" No, okay, then click this button so kids are not allowed near it. And I'm thinking, and I thought about it. I was like, but all these other pages don't ask that question. Like, why?
Yeah.
Why not? Like, that's crazy. I remember even MySpace, they would ask you like, oh, this person's underage. You shouldn't be friends or something like that. But none of these other ones have ever said that unless it's like family. And yeah,
It's not set up to protect children, and I think that's a flaw.
yes,
And the whole point of the petition is to get them to look at their policies and change them and protect children. And be a bit more open about protecting children, because I feel like your system is so flawed that you make a report and they refuse to take it down. You literally get a rejection within less than 5 minutes. And sorry, they didn't violate any rules. And I'm like, what do you mean they didn't violate any rules? Did anyone actually even look at this post? Yeah. And so I believe that we will see change only if we can get enough people to want to see it. And it's kind of disturbing to think that it's been this difficult to get 10,000 signatures. And then you have to ask why.
Yeah.
Why don't people want to sign the petition when it's free? Takes less than a minute. And I mean, it really does nothing except help. It does nothing to you. It just helps promote a good cause and hopefully protect children. So I just can't for the life of me understand why people are so hesitant to sign it.
Yeah, and even at that, it doesn't even take a minute. It took me, you put your first name, last name, email, and that's it. Why would you not want your name associated with trying to protect children? So
and you can even sign anonymously if you didn't want to.
Yeah.
Put your name out there. I don't care whether people want to say, "Hey, look, I signed." I care whether I did.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So you know what? So everyone watching, or whenever you guys do watch it, please, please, please sign this petition. I'm gonna actually get the link from you, and I'm gonna post it in the YouTube video so they could they could click on the link whenever they go on there. So you guys, please sign this, because this is something that needs to be done. We need to protect kids. I'm a father, so like I've told people a lot of times, if anything was to ever happen to my daughter, I would probably end up on the news for what would happen to whoever did that. So I don't understand why not more people have signed it. It's crazy to me to think that you haven't. But then again, maybe some people just never really look at the post. But here, if you're watching the video, please sign that petition and protect the kids, because it's ridiculous. We don't need to see those type of people out here doing things like that. And it's crazy to think about that, as you said, because if there's music playing in the background, they'll delete your video real quick. They'll suspend you.
Like we're living in a time right now where anything political, really anything, politics, 5G, anti-vax factors, any of that will be deleted in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But we can't get sexually suggestive photos of children.
Yeah.
Very, very visible children. We're not talking teenagers. We're talking even then it's wrong. I'm not saying, but we're talking about prepubescent children.
Yes.
And that's very disturbing.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think that like, I mean, I've had a video taken down because you had music playing in the background. It wasn't even. It was a car going by that had music for 5 seconds, and they took my video down. And then I think, but
things just aren't fair the way that they've done things across the board. But you got to remember, we're powerful members.
Yep.
And hopefully, I've only had the petition for 4 days now, and I think we're at 10,000 signatures, and it will only continue to grow. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
But in order for me to get the White House to respond to this, there needs to be 100,000 signatures. So that's definitely the road we're going to take. We will get there eventually.
Yes.
I can't say when, but we will. And when that time happens, I will be sure to fight it the best that I possibly can by being as loud as I possibly can.
Yeah, and it's going to happen because, I mean, there's, like I always tell, there's more good than evil than there is in this world. And when good actually comes all together and does something, it's gonna always win out. So yeah, definitely. And something like that is just, people may not look to it, may not pay attention, but once it hits home, then they'll actually do it. So it should happen soon. So coming up now, almost over here, but I do have a few more questions. Now, I see the shirt you have there, Crunk. Did you ever meet Emmanuel Stuart?
No.
Oh.
I was actually just sent this about a week ago, and I have many of the shirts, and I got their track suits. So that was pretty exciting to receive in the mail.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's cool. I mean, I've always admired Emmanuel Stewart. I grew up watching, so I seen him train so many of the fighters that I loved watching growing up. So yeah, that's why I had to ask that because I was like, oh, I like that shirt. So
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. It's a new clothing line that they have going now. I do see there's more and more people popping up with
yeah.
it. So I'll be actually doing an official post on their clothing stuff tomorrow.
Okay, cool. So I'm have to look that up and get some clothes there.
Yeah.
yeah. Another question now. The videos that I'm not gonna say his name because I don't want to murder his name, but he comes out, he makes the little cartoon videos about the day after
hmm
the fights. The first time you seen your face on those ones of any of those videos, what was the feeling like? Because I laughed hard because they had you down to a T. With the the interview, I think it was when you were interviewing AJ in the locker room.
Yeah, no, I was honored. I thought that was really cool. I'm like, who gets a cartoon made about them
Yeah,
every now and then? Like, I thought that was really cool. I haven't been in one recently. Maybe I need to set the game up. But I was making frequent appearances in them for a while there with all the
yeah,
heavyweights. It always seems to be with the heavyweights, doesn't it?
yeah,
Um, but that was really cool. I was really excited when I saw that. I actually didn't believe it. Right when somebody was like, "You're in a cartoon," I'm like, "No, I'm not."
yeah,
They're like, "No, watch the video." And so I clicked it, and I just was cracking up. It was
yeah.
so funny.
Yeah, it was funny because it was actually my nephew who told me about those videos. He was like, "Hey, have you seen this dude?" And he said his name. I can't say it because I don't want to mess it up. But he goes, "They're funny," and he goes, "Hey," he goes, "that girl you know," and I was like, "Who?" He's all Michelle, and I was like, "Michelle," and then I clicked on it, and I was like, "Oh my god!" I was like, "Wow!" And it's the videos are hilarious. I mean, they're funny, but yeah, I was like, "Oh man!" I was like, "He got her down perfectly." I was like, "Wow." And then I just remember I think I seen you comment about it and say that it was honoring, but yeah, it was pretty cool to see that. And that's the first thing I thought. Yeah, that is pretty cool. That's how you know you're really making it. I tell people when somebody else starts talking about you, or people start doing as a cartoon, like who gets a cartoon made about them
Yeah.
with fighters like that. That was pretty cool. So yeah, I've always wondered what was your first reaction to that, just because it was like so random to see you in there like that. And I like how they had the microphone with behind the gloves on there and everything. It was
Yeah,
cool.
I know. That was really cool.
Yeah, so now, seeing as you've been doing this for, as you said, 9 years now, right? What do you
hmm
think the next 9 years have for you?
Well, I mean, you're talking about the next 9 years are a completely different phase of my life. You know, it puts me into my 40s. Um, so I'm hoping it'll be a new transition point for me, and that I'll have a family. I'll be married, and I don't know. I don't know. I would love to be able to see a little bit more stability come to my schedule, so that way I can. Not that I don't love traveling. Don't get me wrong, but there will come a time where it'd be nice to kind of wake up and have a bit of a routine and maybe not travel as frequently. I don't think I could give up traveling altogether, but maybe not every week.
Yeah,
But that's just, right now that's what I have to do in order to build behind the gloves. And it was a fun sacrifice to make. I know there was a lot that I missed in terms of like stuff with my family and friends, but this is the train. This is sort of like the journey I had to take in order to get to this point. So I would love to have a show, as in like a sit-down talk show,
hmm
and I would love to see myself become more involved in charities, um, most especially with children who've been abused, and really kind of dive really into a lot more into that, because I feel like it just does something for my soul to feel like I'm really helping um, in a space where I was once in. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah,
So yeah, a lot of transitional points, and I'm pretty sure there's going to be some exciting stuff coming up in the next year or two. I know we're kind of sitting in this awkward pause moment,
yeah,
but it's temporary, and then
yeah.
eventually we're going to find ourselves in a whole new environment. And yeah,
Yeah, and yeah, like I tell everybody, it's a stop right now, but we're gonna get through it. I mean, it's what
Yeah,
we always do.
temporary.
Yeah. So, and like you said, it helped you slow down. As you said, you were always on the go. I mean, every time I would talk to you, it was like, oh, I'll text you when I get back to the States or when I get home. Okay, and you would always text or call back when you would get back home. But you were like, yeah, I'm on my way out of here again on Wednesday or something. So, yeah, I know you've really enjoyed being home. As you said,
Yeah,
for the last few months.
I
So,
have. I'm gonna miss it. Um, but I have to, get back, even if it's temporary,
yeah.
and then I'll be right back here, obviously, over the holidays.
Yeah, that's cool. And so as you said, you want to do talk show, charity, and all that. Have you ever
Hmm.
thought about if the opportunity ever comes up again? Let's say they make a Creed 3, and they call you, to play you as a reporter, or something else in there. Would you ever accept a role like in a movie or a show like that?
Yeah, of course I would. I actually got asked to see myself in a TV show in England.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, they're doing a TV show, and I know exactly who the writers and the actors are. And when I go back to England, I'll meet with them as well. But they asked me to be you. There's it's based around boxing, and there's going to be a press conference, and they just want me to do my interviews as if I would normally do them, but I'm myself in the show. So that was really cool to get
That
asked to do that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I was when I was thinking of stuff that I was gonna ask. That was one was because I know how as you said you were real nervous at first when you started and scared, but
Yeah.
now it just seems like second nature to you. So that's why I was like, I bet you she could act real simply.
Yeah.
So
I
that was
mean, I hope so. Maybe put it on the link, please. Okay. Just the other one. Sorry. The one it's getting dark in here. I'm like,
yeah.
there you go. Yeah. Yeah, that would be fun to do. And I haven't tried to act in years. I forever. So if they're asking me to just be me, then it shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah,
I mean, it's another interview, isn't it? But either way, I am excited to participate. It's supposed to be filming in the next couple of months. It's episode 9, I think they said. Yeah.
that's cool.
So we'll see.
That's cool. When that happens, I'm gonna have to look that up and see when it
Yeah.
comes on. Yeah, I'm gonna be like, hey, I know her. I know her.
I'll put that on my Instagram. Don't you worry about that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm gonna be like, oh, I was like, I know her. So, yeah, that'd be cool to see because as I said, I've seen from your first video up to where you're at now, and people that knew me that would see, oh, you right from behind the gloves, oh, from Michelle, and they'd be like,
Mhm.
man, she's really out there now, huh? I think I seen her in, yeah, the one that hit me was they're like, she's in Latvia. I was like, oh yeah, she's out there for a fight. Yeah, that tournament, huh? That's crazy. And I'm like, yeah. And
Yeah.
to me, it was just like I always knew you're gonna do something like that because you hustle. Every time I hear from people is you hustle for interviews, you hustle to talk to people, you hustle to make connections. So I was like, oh yeah, I was like, if they're ever gonna take somebody out there, and then when I heard that you were trying, I was like, oh, she's gonna get it. That's not even a question. So yeah, it was
Yeah,
cool to see it.
I was really blessed. And when I got that phone call, I literally cried. I was so excited because it was like, I don't know, just a small confirmation, I guess, that my work was being noticed, and they felt that I produced quality enough interviews for them to want to hire me. And on top of that, moved me to television.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when I did my first live weigh-in, the owner, or I'm sorry, the CEO of the Super Series pulled me aside and was like, can I speak with you? And I was terrified that I'd done something wrong or I wasn't good enough or what happened. And no, sure enough, he's like, we want to put you on TV more. What do you think about that? And I was like, okay. Yes, please. I'll take that. Where do I turn?
Yeah.
So it was exciting for me, and like I said, I'll always hold that tournament near and dear to my heart, and that's why like everyone that was on season 1 were all so close. Like Usyk will always give us the time of day. Alex Andrew always gives us the time of day. There's never a I'm not manager, I'm sorry, his promoter, they always give us the time of day. And that's because we all were like family. We were all on the road together. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So it was a hell of an experience, and I'll forever hold that close to my heart.
Yeah, and you know what? Speaking of Usyk, that's one of my favorite fighters to watch. Period. And his manager, Aegis, he
He
is
gets, yeah.
freaking
Now,
hilarious.
Alex is the promoter with K2, but yeah,
Yeah,
he did.
Aegis is freaking hilarious. I've sat behind him at 3 or 4 fights, and my God, when it's going good, yeah, he's cool. But when the fight that I was behind him at was Aegis, Mean Machine, and he kept getting fouled, and he is screaming at the ref. He's cussing at him in his language, and then I hear him, "Are you serious with this shit?" He looks at me, and I'm like, "Oh, I don't know." And he goes, "This is bull." But then he goes back to cussing at him, and then he's "Hey, you want to go get a drink after this?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." Like, I don't know, but but yeah, he's so cool too. Like, he just comes down and he'll talk to you, shake your hand. And I'm sitting there thinking like, man, you hold some of the best fighters in the world, and you're just out here like from fight one till the very end. So yeah, he's cool. Yeah, I've always enjoyed talking to him. So yeah, and yeah, I mean, I've seen Usyk seems to always pop up whenever you need an interview. And now, has he done any of those funny things? I mean, the one that interview where he was in the background dancing. Oh my God, that the one that
I
you
didn't
had.
even know who did that. It's so funny. Everyone was like, "Oh, and she's dancing in the background." I'm like, "What?" And I looked at it with no idea. I had no idea. I'm like, "Oh, typical
Yeah,
Usyk."
that was
Silly.
hilarious.
He is, yeah.
Yeah, it was funny because I'm like watching the interview and I'm like, is that? And I was like, oh my God. I was like, really? And it was funny because I could tell you had no idea because you're just going on with the interview, and then
Yeah.
I think you posted it later. Like, I
So,
didn't know he was doing that. It's pretty cool. So yeah, that's those are the moments. Like, I've told people there's times where I was doing an interview with one guy, and it was a prospect, and
mhm.
Crawford walked by and goes, "Hey, you get me next?" No, that's the champ right there, not me. And I was like, "Oh, how come I didn't record something like that?" It was just simple stuff. So when I run into him now, he's like, "Man, you're everywhere now." He goes, "Every time I see you, you're somewhere else." So it's
Mhm.
things like that. It's like I got to tell people, me and Crawford aren't best friends, but he remembers me, which is pretty cool. And like I said, the
Yeah.
time I was invited to a fighter's house, I won't say his name because I don't want people to get crazy. But he invited me to his house, and we ate shrimp and tacos and all that, and had some beer, and it was like I was
Mhm.
sitting there, and I'm like, man, people tell me like, oh man, he's one of my favorite fighters, and I'm like, I'm in his house, like I'm hanging out with him and his friends right now. I was like, that's pretty cool. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's moments like that where like I say, I'm always indebted to you for that, and I always think if it wasn't for Michelle, I don't know what I would be doing, but this is pretty cool. Like, yeah, and those shrimp. If he's listening, those shrimp tacos were amazing, dude. So yeah, but
Well, and and again, the best advice I could ever give is just consistency. So stick with it and just be yourself, do your best that you can possibly do.
yeah, and that's what I'm always gonna do. So, um, it's a little late now, so I'm gonna give you a few moments to go ahead and give all your social media pages and have everybody follow. And remember, guys, we're gonna put up the link in the YouTube channel for that petition that I want you guys to sign. But go ahead and tell everybody where to follow you at.
Instagram is Michelle Gray Phelps. Twitter is at Michelle Phelps. And Facebook, don't even know what it is. I just type my name in and it should pull up.
I believe it does actually. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's about it. I appreciate it. Michael, it's good talking with you again. I'm gonna go. I'm watching my niece and nephew tonight, so I gotta go feed them
No problem. Well,
and get them situated.
thank you. Well, again, thank you for coming on, and thank you for everything you've done for me. And I know I could count on you to talk with you whenever I do need help or advice. For everybody else, thank you guys for following along. 26 Sports, Episode 8. with Michelle Joy Phelps. It'll tell the next one. Catch us on Wednesday. I'm going to have a special episode with Victor Salazar. Everybody else, have a great night. And again, Michelle, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.